championship run.
We have what it takes to win it.
I've won a few championships, and if you want to come up and take it from me, you're going to have to do all that stuff to get there.
You want to dominate every race.
We feel as though we're right on target to go out there and repeat as champions again.
Kyle Busch is going to win in the Granite State.
Kyle Busch wins at Dover.
Monster Energy Cup Series practice from Talladega Superspeedway. As the teams will be working for this final time before qualifying, which will take place tomorrow afternoon. Take a look at the playoff leaderboard from the first practice, which is on the right, where they were ranked in that first practice. You see the dashes beside the 48 of Jimmy Johnson. They went on the track, didn't complete a lap, and had a left rear tire go down early when he was trying to get up to speed, and they never made it back out on track. Fastest in that first practice was Brad Keselowski. Brad Keselowski was over 197 miles an hour for his average speed for one lap around this 2.66 mile racetrack. And issue with Jimmy Johnson, it happened early in practice. He was trying to get up to speed, and there you see it.
The splitter didn't get in the grass and dig in and do damage to the front of the car, but Steve, they did not practice anymore. Just Jimmy called beating out the dents, getting it ready for happy hour.
And now we see the 48s on pit road, and we're going to see quite a few cars. The 3, the 10, the 14, the 17, the 18, 19, 20, the 22, the 37, the 47, the 48, 55, 95, and 78. They all have 15 penalties. The 30-minute penalties are the 1, the 4, the 5, the 6, the 24, the 32, the 77, and the 88. Now, everybody at home is saying, what is going on?
Actually, Rick, I wasn't really paying it. Could you give those all to me one more time?
No,
Hold on a minute. Wait. Just give me the cars that aren't penalized.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, there's
22 penalized cars.
Yes, there's fewer cars right now for this final practice that can go out there than there are penalized cars.
So there's a few different issues, but so remember last week at Dover, at Charlotte. I want to go back 2 weeks, but let's go back last week at Charlotte. There was no practice because of weather. So that moved penalties forward to this week as well. So this isn't all penalties from one singular event or one singular race weekend. This is kind of a total. Some were left over from Dover that didn't get enforced at Charlotte. Some happened at Charlotte that didn't have time to enforce at Charlotte. So don't think that 22 cars had issues today. This is 22 cars. It's been building over a couple weeks. But it does look like they're lining up for a quick A-main off from the pit boxes here. It's a lot of cars.
So Kurt Busch is out on the track, and Kurt Busch trying to grab his potential win at Talladega Superspeedway, looking for a little bit of speed, getting ready for qualifying, which will be tomorrow afternoon. Let's go into the garage and Marty Snyder.
So, Rick, with all those penalty cars sitting out there, you got to wonder if you're a guy like Brad Keselowski, you wanted to go run. So you're saying, hey, will anyone go run with me? He is a one of many drivers. Normally we see the second practice session here at Talladega. Not many teams run. All but 3 playoff cars will try and get some laps in here in the session. Ryan Blaney, Denny Hamlin, and Kyle Larson going to sit this session out. Otherwise, all the playoff drivers want to learn a little bit more. And Rodney Childers just came on the radio, said something interesting to Kevin Harvick. They told their spotter, Tim Feedy, said, hey, walk around up there, talk to all the spotters you can, and say, hey, can a group of 8 of us, when this penalty is up, go out? We'll have a little drafting practice. It'll time out great. So a lot of strategy going on how you play this penalty. But for Brad Keselowski, he's just looking for a drafting mate right now.
Well, Marty brings up a great point. So you said, what 22 cars, Jeff? So, you know, that hurts the cars that want to practice because they need other cars on the racetrack. So it's going to make for an already slow second practice. The start of it here is going to be even slower. I guess Brad's decided that I'm going to go run a little bit by myself. And look, he's a guy, I don't think you can learn a whole lot by yourself as a driver. As a crew chief, you could try to get some data, some information about your car, but he knows what he's doing here at Talladega. I mean, he has 4 wins, He has pressure-packed wins in the playoffs, so when we talk about the uncertainty of Talladega, Brad somehow found a way to find some success in that.
And why is this track different than other tracks? Other tracks, you never see teams give up on practice. They run as much as they can. They make as many changes as they can. But here, you know, most of these speedway cars, and most of it is done in the shop. And there's not a whole lot that you're going to make better once you get to the racetrack. And it's, you know, 100% of what you get is how you roll out of the trailer. It's not going to get much better. But as we're riding along with Brad Keselowski, you see that above his head. Yeah, above his head, there's right there. Steve's a great artist. That's a roof hatch, and that's, you know, the drivers can egress out of that roof hatch in case, you know, of an emergency. They have to get out quickly. And why do they run that here and not other places? Because here it's an advantage. Here, evacuating that air outside of the race car actually makes the race car go faster. So just miraculously, Steve, all the teams say we got to have roof laps at Daytona and Talladega, and it's mainly because it makes the car a little faster.
Well, it didn't work out very well for Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin had an issue with his roof flap, and they were told by NASCAR, you've got to fix that.
Having to fix the race car. He saw his track position and got in this big wreck.
Again, doesn't want to have something like that happen.
And he appears to be done for the day.
Already, they've got it up on the stands, jack stands. Brad Keselowski is making his 300th start on Sunday. You take a look at some of the notable names that were able to get wins in their 300th career start. Joey Logano did it at Richmond just this year. Joey Logano was asked earlier about some Brad Keselowski stories, and here's what he had to say.
KellyCrandallRacer.com. Joey, you made your 300 start earlier this year. Brad makes his this weekend, this Sunday. Do you have a favorite Brad story or memory of being his teammate?
Oh, no. I'm trying to think of one I should say. Shouldn't say. I guess, I mean, Brad and I have become really good friends. You know, and part of the 300 start, that's really cool. And the stat that's amazing to me is how many drivers have won on their 300 start, which I was able to do earlier this year. Sort of, kind of, I guess. I don't know how you guys want to look at that, but I call it a win. But whatever. Take your cucumbers and stick it. I think it was a win. But anyways, that's funny. I don't know. Brad and I, like I said, we've become great friends. We hang out with each other a lot. I use a funny story about Brad. At least we went over to his house. I think it was maybe Scarlett's first birthday or something, and he's like, we're all just hanging out. He goes, let's do something manly, you know. And I'm like, what do you want to do? Like, we're all just hanging out, and he goes, let's play croquet. I'm like, oh God. But he was serious, and I thought it was the funniest thing. We got a good kick out of it. He's a very good croquet player, if you're wondering. Never would have thought that, but he's a good person, you know. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't see, is that he's very competitive. We're a lot alike in a lot of different ways, but he's got a big heart. And I think a lot of people don't see that, because when we're at the racetrack, we're in race mode and we're in work mode. But when you get people away from the racetrack, you start to meet who they really are. And you know, I feel you know, grateful to have a friend like Brad and a teammate like him as well.
So there's a few things that we probably better explain there. When he was talking about the cucumber, the win that he got at Richmond ended up being encumbered in NASCAR's eyes, which means that it didn't make him eligible for the playoffs. So, and that was really kind of the downfall of Joey Logano's season too. Once that win didn't count for the playoffs, he never really had good enough runs to even get in based on points. So it was a difficult turning point for the 22 team. But Steve, Jeff, croquet?
I don't know if I know the official rules of croquet. That would take some internet searching to play it correctly.
Which surprises me because proper attire is required, and I would think you'd understand that.
Right up my alley.
Wickets.
It's a highly questionable race. Like, what's going to happen? It could be chaos. It could be simple. And there are 12 playoff drivers that are going to try to convince us, Jeff, they know what they think the race is going to be, right? Every car in the garage had a plan, but we'll see how those plans work.
Yeah, the different strategies that teams can use based on the situations that they're in, and then as the race changes and evolves, will they change their strategy to go with it?
Every time I think I got a good plan coming here, Jeff, then the race starts and I realize it's a waste of time to make a plan. You know, even the drivers, we heard Chase Elliott say earlier, he's just not sure what everybody's mood is going to be when the green flag flies, and I swear it's that chaotic. I've seen races I thought were going to be calm, 3 wide, races where rain was coming, where I was like, oh, this is going to be crazy, and it was calm. So I mean, there's just no rhyme or reason to how these races play out.
I like before the race when all the drivers are at driver introductions and they're all talking to each other and, hey man, I'm going to help you, you help me, and all that, and you know the guy's lying to you. You know, you're all sitting there together and you're all lying, because as soon as you get out there, that's all thrown out the window.
You see the 88s of Dale Earnhardt Jr., that Mountain Dew on the hood. He will be making his final starts at Talladega Superspeedway. As you see, looks like he's napping in the car there. We had an opportunity to sit down and listen to Dale Earnhardt Jr. talk about restrictor plate racing and what it's meant to him and how he has been able to kind of carry on what his father had been able to do behind the wheel. Everyone made the comment that they thought Dale Earnhardt could see the air. That's why he was so good at restrictor plate tracks. Dale Earnhardt Jr. starts off talking about that incredible win that happened just after his father passed away at Daytona, when he came back in July to the July race, the 400 at Daytona.
Anytime anybody runs really, really good or has a car that's just so dominant, it's human nature to question the legitimacy of the equipment. It just is. And whether that's right or wrong, I've done it. Everybody's guilty. So we go down to Daytona, a lot of emotion, going to that race for the first time since Dad was lost. So we go there and we win the race. You know, it's this crazy storybook weekend, and the whole sport is like, yeah. One freaking guy gets out of the car at the end of the race, Spencer, and says, I think that car is illegal. You know, it's just fishy, smells, doesn't seem right, can't be legal. When we won at Talladega with the same car soon after, I was still disappointed or upset that he did that. Anytime we won after that, we were just kind of like showing people that this wasn't a one-off fluke. This is how good this team is every time we go to Daytona and Talladega, and we ended up winning a ton more races after that.
Here comes Michael to the bottom, and he's going to run out of time. Earnhardt Jr. wins at Talladega. His second straight Talladega win.
I'm only the second man in this track's history to score 3 straight wins at Talladega Superspeedway.
You know, they all kind of just blur together, all those 4 wins in a row. I remember the 4th win because it was the one that helped us break the record.
4 straight wins at Talladega. Dale Jr. breaks Buddy Baker's all-time record for consecutive wins at the same track.
Talladega was a very important track to my dad, winning so many times there. Very important to me to be able to emulate his success there and win a lot. And so to have any type of record at that track that I believe will stand for a while, certainly may be broken one day, but you know, it means a lot to me personally to have those little oddball, random, rare records. The engine that won, I think, 3 of those 4 in a row, I have that motor. I would run this motor and personally request or make sure, like, do I have this motor? You win with it 2 or 3 times, you're like, hey, just keep bringing that one back. You know, rebuild it, we'll take it and race it again. We're gonna race this thing till it quits winning. Eventually, one race we went to where we ran second to Michael, the 5th Talladega race. We were trying to win 5 in a row. It had pushed out a freeze plug. So they were a little worried about it, and we never ran it again. Richie comes back and says, this motor meant a lot to Dale, so let's rebuild it. We're going to build it on this rack, this really nice, clean build. And he brought it and gave it to me. And it's sitting in the building right next to us right now.
So NASCAR's favorite drivers are at the Hall of Fame to talk about their careers, racing routes, and season, all in a unique setting. And this week's guest, Dale Earnhardt Jr. It's NASCAR America Live from the Hall of Fame in Charlotte. It's Tuesday at 5 p.m. on NBCSN. And just throwing out, I know it's Friday the 13th, and some people will be superstitious and they'll say, oh, well, it's just a date. But Dale Sr.'s last win at this racetrack was October 15th, 2000. Sunday's race is October 15th, 2017, and it'll be Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s last race at Talladega.
Well, and you know what has made this young man so good at racing at Talladega is his aggression and his ability to move the cars around and kind of control the flow, dictate the lead. And we haven't seen that, Jeff, as we've talked in the last few races down here, whether it's been car or handling or confidence the car wouldn't do what he wanted to do. He hasn't been able to be aggressive. But in that first practice, I saw moves out of that 88 car that kind of reminded me of the 88 of old. He would get out there on quarter panels, pull cars back and complete passes, Jeff. So I know it's a small sample set, but I'm looking forward to Sunday afternoon to see what kind of moves we're going to see out of Dale Jr.
And if he's going to win this race on Sunday, that's what he's going to have to do. He's going to have to get very aggressive like we've seen him do when he's won here in the past.
Let's go down to Marty.
Well, can't go bug the drivers on pit road, so I figured I'd bug a crew chief up here. Rodney Childers and I hanging out. So what do you do when you got to waste 30 minutes for a penalty, Rodney?
Think about a lot of stuff, that's for sure.
Overthink things, right?
Yeah, we've just been, talking about what we should do here, whether we just run by ourselves or try to get some people that'll run a few laps with us. Car was definitely too loose in that first practice, so we need to make it a little bit better. I feel like the track temps up like it's going to be on Sunday, and when the handling is going to be key on Sunday. So just want to make sure that we're covered on our changes that we made between the two practices and make sure we got a good car.
Wait, did you say handling's going to be key at Talladega, like for real?
Yeah, I mean, I think these temperatures are going to show, later in the race. It was kind of that way for us here in the first race this year, too. Every time we put 4 tires on it, we could drive straight to the front. So I think a good handling car and the guy that can hold the gas pedal down is going to be the one to beat.
How different is the restrictor plate game for you and Kevin now that you switch over to Ford and you have that Roush Yates power?
It's been a lot of fun. I think, the guys at HMS did a good job in the past, but it's fun to see Doug at these places. He's got a smile on his face every time we come to a speedway race, and it means a lot to him. It means a lot to his family. So it's been a lot of fun, and sure would like to get him a car at Victory Lane.
Steve, imagine that, a crew chief down here thinking about things, maybe overthinking things a little bit. You've never done that, have you, Steve?
Well, I might have, but I agree. I think while we think about just raw speed at Talladega, track position has become very important, which means you can't just keep bolting 4 tires on it. And Jeff, as you get old tires at the front of this field with those big runs, those big pushes into the corner, you have to have a car that gives you confidence to stay wide open.
You can't be coming off the throttle and waiting and thinking, can I go there and will the car stick? You just have to put it there. You don't have time to think about it, and the car doesn't handle well. You can't make those decisions, but this racetrack has been a track where we've seen big issues. See right here, Honda trying to push Chase Elliott, just ended up turning him around right in front of the pack. These are the wrecks that everyone is concerned about. What could Chase Elliott have done different? What could you see Joey Logano, you see Austin Dillon. What could any of those guys done differently? That's why you never know what's going to happen at this racetrack.
Cars off the racetrack. That's what NASCAR's trying to make sure doesn't happen. And then he's going to come back up.
Yep. In this show, we're going to talk about Talladega, upcoming race, what we saw today in practice.
Marty.
Hey guys, just checking in on Jimmy Johnson. Remember they had that issue at the first practice session. We talked about that earlier in the show. Happy to report for 48 fans, no issues here in the final practice session. They are swapping out a radio for Jimmy. That's what the crew is working on the driver's side of the car right now. That's the only concern. So, Steve, I would argue, though, for a team that just concentrates on single car runs, and that's kind of it when it comes to the restrictor plate races, maybe an issue like Jimmy Johnson and Chad Knaus had in the practice one might have hurt them less than anybody else who might have had an issue like that, because Jimmy's still able to get these single car runs in like he wants to do and like they like to do every time. He's just been able to do that here in the final practice session.
Yeah, perhaps hurt them the least amount, but at the same time, if anyone's going to have an issue, I think all the cars in the garage were thankful it was the 48, not because they don't like Jimmy Johnson, but because he was by himself. He wasn't out there in a pack. I mean, it was something as simple as a piece of debris cutting a tire. And that's how easy it can happen. And while it only affected the 48 in this moment, think about on Sunday. Think about what's on the line, Rick. Think about the playoffs, the points that are available. It's that easy. It's one piece of debris through one tire, which made the 48 spin. He was by himself, but you put him out there with a pack of 20 or 30 cars, and it could change the entire landscape of this playoff picture.
Well, and as we're focusing right now on the 3, I think that brings up what we saw a year ago. I mean, this was a cut race a year ago. This was the last race of the second round, and Denny Hamlin and the 3 of Austin Dillon are fighting for a spot to move into the round of 8.
11 goes up and almost gets stuck in the middle. I thought he was going to get in the block right here on the bottom, but somehow he gets down in front of the 4 again, and that was it. I mean, what are we talking, 18 inches?
Yes, and so the finish there is for a position, points-wise, because now the 3 comes across the line, and all of those positions add up. There was a tie. The tie goes back to the best finish of that round, and so it ended up going to the 11 of Denny Hamlin, and Austin Dillon was left out of the playoff picture from that point forward.
Well, and I think it's worth noting that while that was drama-filled, and we have seen some drama-filled finishes from turn 4 to this start-finish line down past the tri-oval with points. Casey Kane comes to mind, lost just enough positions to get eliminated from the playoffs. I support NASCAR's move to take this race from a cut race to the middle, because while I love the drama of the finish, I was disappointed that its position in the schedule allowed teams like Joe Gibbs Racing to come here and ride around in the back, because that's all they had to do to advance. I'm not blaming the teams. Their job is to advance for their team and for their sponsors. The system kind of allowed them to do that. The system now, other than the 78 of Martin Truex Jr., who has nothing to lose, so I think he's going to be the opposite, be aggressive and try to gain some more playoff points. I think everyone else in the playoffs has to push, have to be aggressive. I don't think anyone, even the guys all the way up towards the top of the list, can just feel good about the points margin they're sitting on.
You touched on the fact that Casey Kane was a part of the elimination format of these playoffs back in 2014. Look at coming off of turn 4, where the 5 is, the positions he ends up losing from leaving turn 4 until he gets through the tri-oval and to the finish line. Those 4 spots that he misses out on, loses to, are the difference between him still fighting for a championship or that's the end of his run.
Yeah, and think about that. That is what, 8 seconds, 10 seconds worth of racing?
10 seconds, potentially,
so
yeah.
In a 500-mile race, Casey Kane continued to put himself in the right position, and the last 8 seconds, his entire season and championship hopes gone away.
Went away. That's how unpredictable Talladega is. It is the biggest track that NASCAR goes to at 2.66 miles.
Rick, if you're going to be the biggest, you might as well be the fastest. Think about Dawsonville from just down the road in Dawsonville, 212 miles an hour.
That's why we have restrictor plate now. The 33 degrees of banking is the steepest track in NASCAR.
And who knows what could happen. Talk about unpredictable finishes. Think about this. 25% of the races won here have seen a last lap lead change. So we talk about the final 8 seconds, so the last 2.5 miles can completely change who is the happy driver at the end.
And again, NASCAR is on NBC this weekend from Talladega Superspeedway. Race coverage starts at 2 p.m. Eastern. Talladega Superspeedway, the fame and lore of this racetrack. The backstretch is called the Alabama Gang Superstretch. The Allison brothers.
And I'm very, very fortunate when you look at this graphic right here. I mean, I was able to work with Jeff Gordon and Dale Earnhardt Jr. both. I was not fortunate enough to win with Dale Jr. here at Talladega. Jeff Gordon and I, though, did win a couple races. And I can tell you firsthand that we talk about engines, we talk about aerodynamics, but those guys behind the wheel and the decisions they make, they don't make sense to me, but they make sense to them, and the moves can dictate their success. And those are two of the best. I was fortunate to work with two of the best, and this is going to be the best view. You want to talk about moves behind the wheel? We get to kind of spy in and see the moves that Dale Earnhardt Jr. made. I think it's funny, though, that it was his last race here that he was like, all right, guys, I'll wear the helmet cam now. I'll show everybody what I really do.
But remember, a year ago, he was in the booth with us.
Yes, you're right. And I think, you know, that time out of the race car, I think changed his perspective on driving. And I think when you look at his the tracks that he has struggled at, the restrictor plate tracks here lately have been a struggle. He's had a lot of DNFs. Yeah. He hasn't finished inside the top 20 in quite a while. So I think of the one track that he wants to kind of leave his mark on in his final year, it has to be here at Talladega, where he's had just so much success.
It's interesting. You see him continue to glance up at the mirror at this racetrack. Our camera's going to see out of the windshield 100% of the time, but you will be able to glance up into that mirror. His eyes will be looking in the mirror more than likely, more times than his eyes will be looking out the front of the windshield.
So, Rick, there's really two things. You mentioned the regular mirror, which is up here, pretty easy to see, just like it is in your street car. But it's also worth talking about this mirror over here. So you see it just in front of the window net. Well, that is very important because we talked about that side draft and cars trying to get on your quarter panel. Well, listen, TJ Majors on the roof. He does a spectacular job, but going down the backstretch, which is where Dale Jr. is right here, into turn 3, we see that out of the booth, right? How small is that car, Rick? Do you want to clear him 2 inches away?
Right.
You know, it's 2 miles across this racetrack or a mile and a half across this racetrack. He can't. TJ Majors can't make the decision of a foot. Only Dale Jr. can. So he's going to use that left side mirror to use that double yellow line to his left to protect that lead on Sunday. If he's able to lead this race, he can kind of squeeze that guy against that double yellow line. Remember, that's out of bounds. No one can go down below that double yellow line. So both of those mirrors very important.
And we just saw him signal out the driver's side window there with his hand. What's he telling Casey Kane with that? Is it your time to come by or what?
Yeah, I think it was a hand motion to say, hey, you go ahead and lead a little bit. I'm going to go to the top. I want to get behind you and see how your car is. Now, it's unfortunate they only have 2 cars out here. It's very hard to learn what you need to learn with 2 cars. But earlier in practice, I mentioned that side draft and what he was doing to try to pass cars. Well, first, let's go back in our NASCAR Heat 2 wind tunnel and explain the aerodynamics behind it. So here's a car in the wind tunnel, the air going down over the roof, over the sides. That's what it looks like. Well, if you're a car attempting to pass, you get up, get right on that right rear quarter panel and moves that air from the side of the car up onto the spoiler. So now you're not helping your car. You're trying to hurt the car you're trying to pass. So what that does, increases the drag, actually drags that car back, slows that car down. You then accelerate and try to complete the pass. And I think there's no one better than perhaps Dale Earnhardt Jr. This right here is the perfect example. He's going to do it to his teammate, Casey Kane. He gets up, right rear quarter panel. As soon as the damage has been done, he pulls away. And now look, the 5 has backed off from the rear bumper of the 27. He's still wide open. He doesn't mean to do that. That leaves what I today are. It's like parallel parking. I got to make myself a parking spot, drag you back, get back in line. And you have to have a car that handles. You have to have a car that has speed. And more than anything, you have to have a car you have confidence in. Because we have seen him pull out to make that move and the air get on the nose and the car spin out. We've seen him wreck at Daytona. We've seen him wreck here at Talladega on the backstretch. That's something that this 88 has tried to rectify over the last couple of years. And from what I saw in that first practice, I think it's going to look a little different on Sunday. And I think that's his goal, his final ever race here at Talladega.
Another guy who is very good at this racetrack, has 4 wins already, and actually is honoring Dale Earnhardt Jr. with his paint scheme here is Brad Keselowski. He's with Marty.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. We came in to find some shade, but he is honoring Dale Earnhardt Jr. with his paint scheme, who, you know, Jr. gave you your shot, your start.
You know, it feels like in some ways yesterday, in other ways like a long time ago. I guess it was 10 years ago, but it's really neat to get to run this scheme to honor not just Dale, but also all Junior Motorsports and the opportunity they gave me. I don't know where I'd be without that opportunity, but I'm glad I didn't have to find out. So it's cool to be able to honor him. Talladega is such a special track for really both of us. As he's retiring, to be able to do something neat like that is really cool.
Speaking of special things, career start number 300, is that a sign of wisdom, age, longevity? What's it a sign of to you?
Well, we got so much going on this weekend, I'd almost forgot that. We got the paint scheme with the Junior Motorsports and the Cheers to Dale Jr. We got going to the campgrounds, appearances, and all the, of course, it's a big playoff race, too. And the NBC feed is going to be on Twitter with my car. So so much stuff going on, I almost completely forgot it was a 300 start. So I would say my initial reaction is to just feel old. But I feel like I got, you know, a long time left in the sport, and I'm kind of really just hitting my prime, and thankful to even made it this far.
Joey wanted to remind you that he won his 300th career start. It was covered, but he won it, okay?
Well, I want to remind him his 300 start was before me. So I don't know if that makes him older, because he's not old by age, but it makes him older in racing years. It's like dog years.
He also reminded us that when he was over for Paige's birthday, that you guys played croquet. So help me understand. Are you a croquet expert? This is the hidden talent you had?
No, it was a family tradition growing up. So we'd play croquet on Easter, and that was how we got everybody out of the house, because we were kids hyped up on sugar. And so Mom and Dad got a little break, and we just kind of kept it rolling. Now that I got my own family, wife, and kids, it's something cool to do.
Biggest key to a good croquet match is what?
Cheat.
Cheating. I was going to give Stephen Rick some tips, like legit tips. Cheating, I shouldn't give them that.
There's all kinds of ways to cheat in croquet. I'm sure if I know, especially Stevie up there, he might not want to admit it, but he knows. He's been in this garage long enough. He knows all the little tricks. I'm sure he can cheat with the best of them.
All right, is there proper attire for croquet? We were debating that earlier.
Proper attire, whatever you wear for Easter. It's a holiday game, so yeah, you gotta have your holiday dress up.
And watch those sticky wickets, guys, or wickets, sticky wickets. Is that what it is?
And whatever it takes.
There you go. Hey, the motto: cheat. Come on, Brad, not cheating. There you go, Stevie. That was his advice to you.
See, Marty, the only way you can work in the gray area is understand the rules. So I have printed in front of me the official rules of Garden Croquet. I'll be studying up. Tell Brad I'll be over. We'll play a little.
All rise for Premier League mornings on NBCSN. Two of English football's most successful clubs meeting at historic Anfield. Manchester United visit Liverpool tomorrow at 7:30 a.m. Eastern on NBCSN. 48 car of Jimmy Johnson has been out on the track. He's making his way down pit road and into the garage. And while he was on pit road, it reminded me of what took place last week. I know that a lot of us were confused because he had been on pit road, he had gone out of his box, and then they tightened lug nuts. Well, we've all talked to NASCAR since last weekend, and they said they've been very consistent with this, and we agree. We've gone back and we've found footage that has confirmed they have been consistent with this call all season long.
Yeah, it starts here in Denny Hamlin in Chicagoland. So the most important thing to look at is watch the left rear tire. So they go up, they change left side tires. Everything looks great. The jack man drops the jack. And you see right here, the nose clearly goes over the front of the pit box, well outside of the pit box. You have the rear tire changer nose. He needs a tight lug nut on the left rear. There you go. Same as Jimmy Johnson, a lug nut being serviced outside the pit box.
And this was earlier in Loudon at the New Hampshire race. Very similar to what happened last week. He left the box, they came back, they retightened the lug nuts.
And then this is the one that everyone talked about all week. This is Charlotte. And I said it last week during the broadcast. We will see how NASCAR reacts to this. They were very clear. It's no penalty. I think the little bit of confusion is why it would be no penalty. And you have to understand the rule is you can't service your car. Well, service can be questionable, right? Is that changing tires, hitting lug nuts, putting fuel in? And NASCAR has said, listen, guys, there is a lug nut rule in place. There's a safety concern. We are not going to start judging when they hit a lug nut in or out of the pit box. So whether people agreed or disagreed with the penalty, I feel NASCAR was in the right. And more importantly, what I think NASCAR has always criticized about is their consistency. And I feel that was 100% consistent with what we had seen all year long. We just hadn't caught one quite as obviously as we had caught that one at Charlotte.
And I spoke with the NASCAR officials earlier today, and they reiterated it's about safety. It is always about safety. Any type of decision they make is for the betterment of making sure the drivers and the fans are safe. They don't want a car to go out onto the racetrack that would have loose lug nuts and the wheel potentially could fall off. There's a huge penalty if that happens, but if they can fix it before they go out of their pit box or even as they're on pit road so that that doesn't happen, that is safer for the drivers and the fans. Marty.
And Rick, the reason it worked for the 48 last week, Chad Knaus got clarification after you saw the video from what happened to them at New Hampshire. He made sure with NASCAR officials that he was indeed in the right. NASCAR officials confirmed, yes, we just want it to be a safety thing. So that's why he felt so comfortable with it. And if you listen to him on the radio when all that was going down, he was the calm voice saying, stop right there, put the lug nut on, and move forward, and was not worried about the car being out of the box. So Chad clearly very much understood the rule that NASCAR was going to rule on it, and he was correct.
And Marty, that was my biggest concern coming out of last week, is words on paper, while those are the rules, how they're enforced is always going to be a discussion. It seems like the 48 had a discussion with NASCAR. They were clear, but even Cole Pern, other crew chiefs weren't aware of that rule, Rick, or how it was going to be enforced. I think that's what needs to improve moving forward, is communication between teams and NASCAR, just so everybody understands. So when you fail the eye test, you know that it was within the rules.
On your toes, on your toes.
Jimmy Johnson gets nailed, and it's a big one. Half the field is piling up in turn one. Oh, trouble. One car upside down.
What the hell happened? I swear these guys don't have a clue what they're doing.
Oh, Elliott spins. He got tagged.
Oh, my God, he just spun us.
Here at Talladega, they call it the big one.
Man, it's crazy. I've never seen driving like this. It's just been a nutty day.
So many times it is a crazy day at Talladega. That looks really good. Let's go down to Marty.
Hey, they don't fool around at Roush Fenway Racing, okay? That is for lunch. These are steak burgers. Great job on cooking those. Stenhouse had one. How was the steak burger? I mean, Stevie's up there eating a granola bar in commercial break. You're enjoying a nice steak burger.
Yeah, it's why he doesn't hit it as far as I do.
Oh, a shot at your golf game, Letarte.
Nah, Steve's healthy. Those hamburgers were really good. I tried to get him to bring me one while I was doing my penalty out there, but it'd been a little messy in the car.
Didn't quite work out, did it? So do you feel like you come in as the favorite this weekend after winning the last 2 plate races, Ricky?
Probably to some people. In our eyes, I don't really think there ever is a favorite coming into a speedway race. I feel like all our Fords are fast. I feel, you got Denny and Matt and, those guys that are really good on plate races that, work their way to the front and can stay there as well. So, I don't really know if there's a favorite, but, I feel good about all of our Fords for sure. So, our Sunny D Ford drafted really well in practice, and we kind of stuck to our game plan. We drafted, race run, go out, do a single car run, and go sit out there for 15 minutes for our penalty and, call it good. So they're, cleaning up, double checking, doing a checklist. We go across the LIS a lot here during practice to make sure that you're legal when you do get done, qualifying in the race. So we did all that. We checked all the boxes, and we're ready to go.
I think you certainly are. You would agree, one of the favorites. You've come in here before probably flying below the radar, though. How is it different when you walk in here as one of the favorites? Does it add pressure, or does it give you a little more pep in your step?
I think it gives us a little more pep in our step. I think, winning here at Talladega, going to Daytona, getting in late race situations at Daytona gave me a lot of confidence that we were able to get the job done here. Now being able to do it at Daytona as well, I think just kind of keeps giving you that confidence when you show up to Talladega and Daytona. And so we're ready to go. I think, this is what we live for. And, a playoff race, being in a car capable of winning, being fast, it's really what you kind of hope for in your season, and being in that playoff race going into, the round of 8. So hopefully we can, capture that win, and, definitely be the biggest win of our career, or at least my career, being a playoff race.
You'll definitely be one of the favorites. And if you want, we can send one of these steak burgers up to Steve and Rick. If you want one, hey, there's 3 left. Look at that, Rick. One for you, one for Steve, and then we'll send one to Matt Marvin, our producer in the truck. How about that?
Deal.
I mean, listen, we couldn't have that. Listen, he deserved that win at Talladega. Fast car, great driving. But let me tell you, for a guy that's a good condition, look at this short-footedness. Oh, I like the spin move, played it off like he meant to do it. But so he gets an A+ for winning. I got him about a C+ for celebration.
Right here from the track, as well as Marty Snyder and Rutledge Wood. They're part of NASCAR America. Again, that's today at 5 o'clock Eastern.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great show we do every day during the week, but rare do we get to do it from the racetrack. So I'm excited We could talk about the 2 practices we've seen here today, and more than anything, the upcoming chaos of Sunday afternoon. This race is unpredictable. We've seen first-time winners, surprise winners. We've seen playoff contenders punch their ticket by winning here. We're going to break all that down today at 5 o'clock. That's 5 Eastern, Rick, 4 here, to make sure I get the right spot at the right time.
You say that you can handicap or maybe break down the race on Sunday. We saw the 24 of Chase Elliott look very good at this racetrack and get caught up in something that wasn't of his making. So how do you really handicap a race where there's so much unpredictability?
Well, we have seen just some surprise winners. I remember the race that David Reagan won. We were talking about this early today. Could somebody from middle part of the field, back of the field, come up and get a win, earn a win here at Talladega? And I thought to myself, well, I don't think they could. And then I thought for a minute, I said, well, I didn't think David Reagan could win that day, and he won. He dominated those closing laps with his teammate pushing him and got the victory lane, and I think that is Talladega. You can plan, you can, kind of hedge your bets on what you expect to see, but it is the most unpredictable 500 miles that we're going to see in the playoffs. And Chase Elliott, as you see the run he's on in the playoffs, he's just looking to continue this streak, right? Trying to keep his average finish up there. But unfortunately for him, so is everyone else in the playoffs.
Right.
They're just trying to have a good day at Talladega.
You can't, one driver can't advance out of the race here at Talladega, but there's 10 other drivers then that have to have a good finish so that they don't eliminate the possibility of them being able to advance throughout the playoffs into the round of 8.
That's it. And as practice ends, it's a long weekend down here because the next thing these cars will do will be qualifying tomorrow afternoon. So they're going to sit around tomorrow and think about what's to come on Sunday. Then they qualify, and then they get to spend another night thinking about the chaos that's awaits Sunday afternoon.
Well, the fun thing is that Jeff Burton is, I think, strapping in about now to his NBC Sports On Track Camry, and so he'll be out on the track, and I think they're going to be touching on that with the NASCAR America show that's coming up at 5 Eastern.
It is. And Rick, I asked if you want to come join us 5 o'clock. You're welcome to come join. We're going to break down Talladega. Love to get your thoughts.
That is so sweet of you. There's a lot of people already on the show, so I'll let you guys take care of it. Again, that's 5 o'clock.